Our next guest is going to walk us through the Browns headlines. I did comment on the Mike Silver report about teams calling the Browns after they drafted Shedeur Sanders to trade for Dillon Gabriel. He's in the midst of his exhaustive cross-country trek. As we all know, Albert, last time we talked to him was with the Chargers. We'll see where in the world Albert Breer is now as he joins us on the fan hotline of the MMQB. Albert, welcome to the show, bud.
How you guys doing?
We're doing all right here. I'm still a little confused. Maybe I want more clarification on the Dillon Gabriel stuff that I know you put as part of your recent mailbag here. I'm just curious. Is it common after a guy gets drafted for other teams to call and try and make a trade for him?
I mean, it's not, I would say not uncommon. I think it's a signal that there were teams that were looking at taking him high in the fourth round, and that maybe more teams viewed him that way than people knew on the outside. And I think that's a result of, really the reason why the Browns took him in the third round to begin with, which was he crushed the pre-draft process. And so a lot of what the Browns saw in him was, at the very least, you have a guy who's probably going to last in the league for a long time. Now, will he ever be a starter? Obviously, that's very debatable. But they saw in Gabriel a guy who'd be able to adapt quickly to the NFL, who'd be able to adapt to playing in an NFL offense quickly, and would be able to, at the very least, be a valuable backup in the league in the long run.
Do you have any idea what that offer would have looked like if a team was trying to get Dillon Gabriel at the time?
Yeah, I think it would have included a fourth-round pick, and then maybe something on top of that, somewhere in that neighborhood. I would say, again, sometimes how teams will react in these sorts of situations where a player will go and they really had their eye on him, and are disappointed, obviously, that he's taken by somebody else.
This happens every year in my fantasy football draft, by the way, Albert. I'll ask you, Kenny Pickett, unlikely to progress past 7-on-7s this week, unlikely to play in the preseason game. Actually, I think he's been ruled out for that. Is it time to rule him out of the quarterback kerfuffle for the Browns?
I don't think that there's any question. I don't know. In my mind, I don't have a ton of question over who the starter is going to be. It's felt like this was going to be Joe from the start. That Joe, obviously wasn't subject to the competition in the spring the way the other guys were. And look, I think you look at the front end of their schedule, and it's pretty obvious what we're looking at, which is a potentially really rough start. So, I think having a steady presence, a guy who knows the offense, a guy who can put the other guys in the best position to succeed early in the season is going to be paramount. And, with Kenny, I think Kenny had a shot to get there, but I think with all the reps he's losing, his road to the starting job gets more and more narrow. And I just don't think the rookies are close right now to where Joe is, So it feels to me like Kenny would have been the one that might have had a shot at it. And obviously injuries have affected that in a pretty serious way.
What was the reaction from people you talked to across the NFL about Shedeur on Friday night?
That everybody's insane to be talking about it like they are, and that if people see one more first take segment on it, they want to throw their TVs out the window. Honestly, guys, it's just it's at the point now where just let the guy be a rookie. You know what I mean? He had a couple of nice throws against a really vanilla defense. A defense that wasn't running much, that has backups in the game. And again, I'm not taking anything away from what he did. He showed some good things, but the way people have gone from 0 to 60 with this, the first thing he needed to do was find a way to earn first team reps and have the coaches want to take a look at him with the first team, and that's still miles away from ever starting a game. So, look, I think, a lot of people were obviously very wrong in what they thought the league thought of Shedeur. And that's not Shedeur's fault, but that was, I think a lot of the teams in the league felt a certain way about who he was as a prospect, and that was reflected over the weekend of the draft. And whether they're right or wrong about that, we'll see. But I just feel like this is another one of those cases where the importance of this story has been blown out of proportion to a point where what people in the league think of it versus the way the general public is digesting it is pretty different.
Albert Breer on the fan hotline here with Nick and JP. All right, so if it is Joe's job, here's because I think a lot of people expect more than one quarterback to play this year, just given maybe some of the expectations for the Browns. So finish the sentence for me. It's Joe's job until ...
Until he falls on his face, if that happens. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it looks like he can't run the offense because age has caught up with him or whatever it might be, or the season comes off the rails and now you got to start to look at your roster. I think what too often people fail to see, with these sorts of situations is the quarterback's not the only guy out there. And, there are 10 other guys in the huddle on every play that have careers that are, obviously concerned about their own personal performance. And, it's important for a coaching staff, if they want to hold on to the team and they don't want to, create larger problems, to give those guys the very best chance they possibly can at the most important position on the field. And, that to me, I think has got to be your main concern for Kevin Stefanski is who, we're in transition right now. We're coming off of a tough year. There's a lot of younger players in the roster now, and there's been some turnover. So how do we create a situation where, everybody is in the best position to succeed, through what's a really tough stretch to start the season? And obviously, the quarterback is going to be the guy that's going to affect more people than anybody else. And so that decision is going to affect more people than anybody else. And so, again, I understand fans who are sitting there and saying well, we already know we have in Joe Flacco. You already know what Kenny Pickett is. So I just want to see the rookies. Well, the NFL doesn't really work that way, and if you put a kid in there who's not ready or not capable of doing the job, that's probably the fastest way, a coach can get to losing his team.
Browns came out with their second unofficial quarterback depth chart, and it went Joe Flacco 1, Kenny Pickett 2, Dillon Gabriel 3, Shedeur 4. It's the same as the original one. If I were to have you rank out what you think the Browns depth chart should be right now, how would you do it?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't been there every day. You know what I mean? But I feel like I'm going to turn blue in the face the amount of times I've sort of spelled out why it is that way. You know what I mean? And I was saying this before the depth chart came out. I just think at this point they would feel more comfortable putting Dillon Gabriel in a regular season game than they would Shedeur Sanders. It does not mean that can't change in the next 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. It can, but just as far as what your comfort level would be if you're one of those coaches, what their comfort level is with putting a guy in that game and having those guys start a game. I think that's the order, and again, maybe that changes, but I don't think, a few throws in a preseason game is going to be the sort of change agent for that a lot of people want it to be.
Albert, we mentioned Kenny Pickett a little bit here. If the Browns decide to not carry 4 men on the 53-man roster, is there a trade market for Kenny Pickett heading into the regular season?
Yeah, I think that depends. I think that'd be possible. I think really kind of that rides on, well, are we going to get a look at him at all in the preseason, right? Which would, allow other teams to get a look at him, and then B, is there a team out there that has some sort of material change to their quarterback situation, whether that means maybe their backup doesn't look as good as they thought he would, or there's an injury. All that stuff can affect it. So I think you're talking about a moving target, but I certainly could see a scenario where somebody is intrigued enough to take a look at him, if if you're the Browns and you decide one of the 2 rookies is ready to be the backup, because that's really the key to it too, is like, do you have a rookie you're comfortable putting in there in the backup? And I actually think they are getting there on Dillon Gabriel. Like, I don't think they would start him in week 1, but I don't think, like, given like his ability to run the offense, I don't think they would feel uncomfortable putting him in the game in week 1, if that makes sense.
Albert, Miles got a speeding ticket at 100 miles per hour. I think it's his 7th speeding ticket that he's had while in Cleveland. I think some of the outrage locally comes with the idea that a couple months ago, Andrew Berry, when Shedeur went through his speeding tickets, it called it dumb and went in this whole diatribe about how dumb it was, essentially. Is this anything? Like, I had a hard time trying to defend Miles in this instance. I don't really care about speeding tickets that often. They clearly don't seem like they care about it as well, but it's also one of those scenarios where I don't have much of a response back to a lot of people that get angry.
Yeah, I don't like. It's funny because I don't like even like get how this keeps happening with guys. You know what I mean? Like, I got a bunch of tickets when I was younger, and I remember like having it in my mind how many it would take for me to get my license suspended. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, you know what you're what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, when you're doing it, but I it's just the weirdest thing with football players where this seems to be like such a huge problem throughout the league. Like, I think Rashee Rice is going to get a pretty serious suspension, like maybe 6 games for what happened, in Dallas. And I think part of it is like that the NFL recognizes that this is like a very real problem with football players. Like, stuff keeps happening at Georgia too. I mean, I don't know how much you guys have followed the stuff down there, but it wasn't just Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was obviously, involved in something really, really tragic, but like I think they had a guy caught down there for speeding like a couple of weeks ago, so that there's clearly something, like that the NFL is dealing with here. And to me, like, that makes it worse with Garrett. You know what I mean? Like, where not only is it a personal problem for you, but it's also something that's making the league look really bad now and teams look really bad now. So, I think because of that, like, because of the repeated nature of it, and because it has been, something that's been a problem with football players in general, it's not something that should be ignored.
Yeah. One of the Georgia football players that just recently had this happen, Albert, his name is Nitro Tuggle. It's like the most on-brand name for a speeding ticket. What else was he going to do? It's in his name.
I wonder, is he related to Jesse Tuggle? You guys remember the old Falcons linebacker?
If Jesse Tuggle named his kid Nitro, it's like the most Jesse Tuggle thing I could have ever found out.
For sure. That would 100% line up. So I'm going to gamble that yes, he is his son.
Albert, Aaron Rodgers got his calf wrapped today at practice. Just given that, calf, Achilles, they seem to be synonymous with each other. How big of a concern is there in Pittsburgh, or is this a one-day thing?
I mean, it's a one-day thing until it's not, I guess, I think it's, I sort of relate this to the Stafford thing in Los Angeles, where it's like when you got an older quarterback and stuff like this pops up, it's always a concern. I don't have any reason to think it's anything more than just, normal maintenance and wear and tear. But, when you're an older player like that, like, and you've had an injury in that area, it's something to keep an eye on. So the same way, like with Stafford, it's like, you want to say like, this isn't a huge concern because of the age of the guy. Like, it's definitely something that you have to keep an eye on.
What's going on with Cam Hayward?
I think like that one is sort of a part of, I would say the best way to couch that one is it's a result of giving so many other guys raises. And so TJ Watt gets a raise, Jalen Ramsey gets traded there, he gets a raise. And, Cam Hayward's at the end of his career, and this might be his last bite of the apple. This could be his final year. And he's probably looking around and saying to himself, well, if you're going to reward other guys, like, then I want mine too. And I can't blame a guy for doing that because, really their ability to make money as football players is always fleeting. And so like if, he feels like he's got some leverage because of, all the eggs being in the 2025 basket in Pittsburgh, so much being sunk into this year, and because other guys have gotten rewarded, then, I can't really blame him for that.
All right, Albert. I lampooned Ohio State's game day experiences changed. What was it? Something Revisited Have you seen the changes coming to the game day experience at Ohio State football with the towel and the changes to hang on Sloopy? And if so, were you also outraged?
Yeah, I mean, well, Sloopy is not going to be at the end of the third quarter anymore. Is that right?
Yeah, they've said it's going to be used in a more organic fashion, which I do not care for.
I'm confused by that. Yeah, I don't know what that means. I guess I have to see it to figure it out. I mean, I would say like I've been in games. I've been at games there where like I feel like it's like the best environment in college football, but it varies. And I think you guys have seen it too, probably, right? Like where like there are other games where it's like it feels dead and lifeless. Like I remember being at the USC game in 2009, and that was about as electric of a stadium atmosphere as you could ever see. You know, the Michigan games are obviously on a different level, and yeah, I understand. I appreciate like trying to generate more atmosphere, and but I also am like a traditionalist. Like I don't like when they wear the alternate uniforms, so. I'm gonna have to wait and see, what this actually looks like before I pass final judgment on it. What would help though is some more night games. That would definitely help the atmosphere there.
Yeah, I think that to me was my takeaway, was trying to fix the game day experience, which it is a fair point. You kind of pointed it out there without addressing how many noon kickoffs. Like, I don't care if you're a 75-year-old Ohio State fan or an 18-year-old Ohio State fan. That 12 noon kickoff is tough to get up for. I say that as an old man myself.
I mean, the Notre Dame game 3 years ago, it was electric in there, and it's like, it's not a coincidence that like outside, because Michigan's a different animal altogether, because it's just like the anger and tension in the stadium. Like, it's just hard for anybody who hadn't been to one of those, it's hard to like really describe that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I mean, the night games are something different altogether. The night games, like just how edgy those are, and it's a different deal altogether. And I hope they can figure out a way to give us some more of those, because it seems to me like it's almost like Ohio State is being punished for carrying the rest of the league when it comes to television ratings. Like where, okay, like, well, this is the highest rating team, so we're going to put them in noon every week. Like that's kind of tough.
Albert, great stuff as always, buddy. Appreciate you. Keep killing it this preseason, and before you know it, the regular season will be here.
All right, thanks, guys.